Well, thank you, Heather. And I have to start by saying thank you to OK Ethics and Oklahoma Quality Foundation. It all started with one lady, though. I think we know who that is. So Shannon Warren, thank you so much for having me come out from New York. And for Heather, you know, there's been a lot of, you guys like the movies, by the way? Jerry Maguire, Ambassadors of Kwan. There's a bunch of Ambassadors of Kwan here in Oklahoma City. Shannon, Heather, Jalisha, Bob, the entire board. I just want to thank everyone that's been so helpful bringing me here. And this morning I met many other Ambassadors of Kwan. You see, I had an opportunity, and I'm getting a little emotional here just thinking about it, to go to the memorial this morning. And I broke one of my own rules. I said, well, I'm going to try and compartmentalize the experience between New York and Oklahoma. I'm just going to think about Oklahoma this morning. It didn't work that way. Your emotions don't work that way. They kind of got intermingled, and a lot of memories came flushing back. And I needed that. I needed that for two reasons. I needed that to relate to you with my message today, but I also needed to be reminded that forgetting about it never works. We have to embrace it, we have to learn from it, and we have to move forward with some of the rules, quite frankly, I'm going to talk about today. So I was blessed to have that experience, and I guess the big thing that I got from it is a question, an accountability question, that I think that we need to share. I'm not pointing a finger at you and saying, you must do this. I'm saying we must do this. So here's the question. After experiencing what I experienced this morning, and after living through 9/11, and I lost many friends in 9/11, the next day I was working down at 9/11 for many months. What did we really learn from those experiences? And how do we hold ourselves accountable today in the area of ethics and reputation, which is what I'm here today to talk about? Meaning, do we really understand what the slippery slope is? Do we really understand when we're slipping? Do we really understand when we look the other way? Do we understand that inaction is also a lie to ourselves and to others? These are big questions that we have to ask ourselves every single day. We had a number of award winners here today. To get to that state, they must be thinking about those things from those perspectives. So today I'm going to talk about that in a very deep way to hold us all accountable. That's the goal today, to walk out of the room with an accountability message that says, he didn't just come in to go through a couple of rules and to say this is going to be easy. This is tough stuff. This is life stuff. This is not a business speech. I know you thought it was going to be a business speech. This is a life speech, and business is a subset of our lives. And the first tip is that once we divide our lives to a business life and a personal life, you're already on the slippery slope. That setup is a disaster. It's a big deal. So whenever you hear someone say, I have a business life and I have a personal life, you need to, with love and humility, say, that's a big mistake. You got one life, and we're going to live it with integrity from the moment you wake up until you go to bed, and hopefully even when you're sleeping. Okay? So let's start with a few experiences. Let's call him Tom Smith. Tom Smith is not his real name. He was a client of mine. Tom Smith was a CEO of a major corporation, and he had a CFO that was working with him, and the CFO ended up becoming my client. And that client, for several months, almost 90 days, I believe, was lying to me about the circumstances of what happened within a global corporation. So I decided one day at lunch at a university club in New York City, with a lot of people around, at a private table that we were having lunch, to kind of push forward with him in a more difficult way to let him know, well, if what you're telling me is the truth, then you don't need to worry about the things I'm about to say. But if you're not telling me the truth, these things could happen to you. And the list included going to jail. The list included losing his wife. The list included his kids not talking to him anymore. Some very powerful and direct accountability. And I said, it could start crumbling as soon as today. So you think about these things deeply. And I'm going to ask you one more time when I come back from the men's room, are you telling me the truth? Because I can't help you until you tell me the truth. See, my job isn't about publicity. My job isn't about just sending out a press release. Crisis public relations and reputation management is about counseling at the highest level, going to the heart of who we are as human beings. So I went to the men's room, came back, and he was crying. In fact, one of the waiters had stopped me on my way back and said, "Mr. Paul, your guest is crying in the middle of the lunchroom." So I went back, and his chin is shivering, and he's got some tears coming down, and I quickly got him out of the room. He went to a private space to talk. And he said, "I'm ready to tell you the truth. I can't lie anymore. By the way, I've had an ulcer for the past 6 months. My health is falling apart. I haven't really been sleeping at night. I've been cooking the books for 10 years. Sawbox. I don't even know what sawbox is. I don't know how to do it the right way. I only know how to lie. And worse, my mentor before me, who was in my position, did it for more than 10 years before me. This company has been lying for more than 20 years. True story." So he said, "How can you help me?" And I said, "You just told me the truth. I know the overall situation now. Now we can start repairing your reputation. But here's what was different when I talk about the difference between a business life and a personal life, and it's only one life. In his mind, he thought he was still going to be a CFO and potentially a CEO, because those were the goals he still had in his mind for success. And what he had to learn over time, and it took him many months to get there, to really embrace it. We had a lot of work to do, because he had made all those decisions in this little tunnel, see? Didn't think about anything else but himself, didn't think about his family, didn't think about the consequences to other people and stakeholders. And what he had learned was that becoming a better human being first, before he even thought about his family, and then before he thought about potentially ever having another job, was where he needed to start. That wasn't on the table. That wasn't even on the table for him. And we started embracing the basics. That's what reputation management and crisis management is all about. Understanding the basics that should have been there in the first place and rebuilding that foundation from the ground up. So when he started embracing being a better husband first, being a better father first, he said, whoa, I still got to make money. My integrity about being in the business world. I said, that's not going to come first. And I have to be honest, it might not come back ever again. But if you focus on these things, you're going to start repairing your reputation in a powerful, powerful way. And it's going to start with accountability for the things that you've done. With an attorney wanting to pull his hair out of his head because he's giving them the opposite advice of almost everything I told him. And what he had learned, which I preach almost every day, sitting across the table from major attorneys from around the world, your expertise is dealing with the court of law. That means dealing with a judge and a jury. That means dealing with whether our shared client, not your client, our shared client is either going to go to jail or pay a major fine. That's it. Attorneys want you to think that they're in charge of everything. Everything. I work very closely with attorneys every day, but I have to hold them accountable the same way that I have to be held accountable. The court of public opinion is more than 50%. Many times, it's more than 75% of what our client is going through. We're not in court, sometimes for months later. And their reputation is being torn apart from day one. So the client then has to decide which counselor should they listen to first, which counselor should they listen to at all, which counselor is going to win for that day as to the circumstances in which they're facing right now. And that's very hard. It's not easy. More and more law firms are understanding that there has to be a compromise. We're working with more and more of them to understand there is a way of communicating where you're not hurting our client, our shared client, in the court of law by giving an answer. Certainly not giving an answer hurts him every single time from a reputational perspective. Just a fact. So this is tough stuff. Business examples, life solutions. Business is a subset of life. We got to remember that. The building blocks of an excellent reputation are 6, in my opinion. And they include truth, honesty, which is the application of truth, humility, transparency, accountability, and consistency. Those 6, what I call reputation bricks, are the foundation of any excellent reputation. And as I like to say in a little bit of street vernacular, we as adults stink at it. We teach our kids before they go to kindergarten, tell the truth. If you get in trouble, tell me first, which means that your child has to understand they've done wrong first, right? They have to know the difference between right and wrong, then they have to apply it with honesty and share it with you. Be transparent, be accountable for your actions, and be consistent. Don't tell me a truth here and then a lie next. Be consistent. We're horrible at that, folks. We gotta be honest with ourselves. We're horrible at that. Another major rule, someone asked me a question with an interview this morning about social media and about how we should live our lives. You should live your life as though the media microscope is on you 24/7. But we as humans want to hide. If we can get away with something, we try to. We use the excuse of other people are doing it. Well, other people were selling inappropriate mortgage packages that put our world in a downward spiral. Yes, many of them weren't educated to understand what they were buying and couldn't afford. But the bigger piece was, I'm going to get paid, whether they pay it or not, I'm going to get a cut immediately. That's what happened. The educated person said, I'm going to get mine no matter what. Of course you can afford a house. You only make $23,000 a year. You can get a $400,000 mortgage. That's just crazy. That was happening all over our country. So, other big questions. If you work for an organization that you know is doing the wrong thing, are you called to stay? Are you called to be a whistleblower? Are you called to be a leader of change within the organization, to bring change from the bottom up? Is there someone else at a number 2 or number 3 or number 4 position that brings it top down? Do you say, that's not my business? I've got 2 mortgages, I've got 2 kids in school. Turn the other way? This group means nothing, folks, if we don't have those big questions discussed with accountability every single day. So accountability is one of the 6 bricks, one of the most important bricks. Do you have an accountability partner right now? Have you told someone in your life that you trust, that will be honest with you, when I start slipping on the slippery slope, you have permission, I'm telling you right now. I might be angry later, but I'm telling you right now, you have permission to call me on my stuff with humility, with grace, and say, you know, you didn't really handle that the right way, or I'm concerned about you in this area. Not just business, folks, in life. I'll give you a personal example. I keep saying we. I've been preaching a little bit here, so I got to get back to me a little bit to balance it out, right? I go on TV a lot. TV is a drug. It's a drug. You want more. Once you have a little bit, you want more. There are several people in my life who I've said, when I get on TV and I'm digging myself a little bit, you can call me up and say, you're digging yourself a little bit. 92-year-old mentor who is the chair emeritus of one of the founding large PR firms worldwide. He has permission to pick up the phone and tell me. My pastor at a church has permission to tell me, and in other areas of my life. Those things are important. It could be your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your mate, your parents, your boss, if you have a great relationship with your boss and they're an honest person that you trust. You decide who that accountability partner is, but I encourage everyone in this room, when you leave today, you should have an accountability partner. It's a big deal. You can't do it alone. You just can't. And when you're in full-blown crisis, if you don't have that kind of support from your family, from your friends, from your mentors, from those that you trust, you're not going to make it through. I'm telling you, it's tough stuff. When the media microscope is on you and you can't walk out your door, you're not only concerned about whether you're going to jail or paying a fine. You're afraid of your family name being so tarnished that your wife or your son or your daughter or your parents or your in-laws can't walk out their door because they're going to have to ask you questions about your behavior. This is behavioral work at the highest level. It is looking within our hearts. Someone said earlier, was it Jackie? That business is about smarts and personal life is about the heart. I agree. Has to be a combination of both. They should not be separated. In fact, if you're making business decisions without using your heart, you're making big mistakes every day. Because your heart is going to pull you from an ethical perspective and understand that business decisions need to be moral decisions as well, not just the bottom line. Kudos to the company from a collections perspective that is doing it differently. And how ironic is this? Doing the right thing is a key differentiator. Think about that. Most of the other collection agencies are saying, you owe us the money, we're going to badger you, we're going to call you, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, we don't care. We're getting our money by any means necessary. Ironically, full well knowing there's no money to get. Think about it. That person had the money. They would be paying it back. They might have been irresponsible in the way they dealt with it in the past. But when their stomach is churning with such anxiety that they want nothing more than to be able to pay that check and go to sleep and say that debt is done, but you're just badgering. And a company decides we're going to do it differently. And it's such a key differentiator that everyone goes, it is worthy of an award, and you should get an award because of the society we live in. But if we were all doing business from the ethical and moral standpoint of which this organization is founded, that would not be an award. That would be everyday business. Think about it. That's an important principle to remember for all of your businesses and for the way that we treat people in general. So if we're trying to build a next generation of leaders who are thinking from a moral and ethical perspective in business and in life, you're the examples, folks. They're watching every single thing you do. And the slippery slope is every small little white lie, every situation where you think no one else is seeing it or watching it, they see everything. You want to get personal about personal life? They sense the tension in the room when 2 adults are not getting along, and they're 4 or 3. You want to get real? That's real. We didn't argue in front of the kids. It didn't have any impact. They feel it before you open your mouth, and you're not talking to each other for days and weeks and hours. Now bring that to work. And you're taking it out on your employees and your coworkers. So when I get called into a corporate situation and we do an audit of the situation from a crisis perspective, a marketing perspective, an HR perspective, in dealing with communications and branding and reputation, the problems aren't written down from a business perspective and best practices. So the client thinks it's going to be there. It's all behavioral. This leader is doing this. As a result of this leader doing this and having this behavior, it's affecting what is unwritten rules within a sector of your company. might as well be written down, because basically what they're saying is, unless you do it this way, some of it even could be illegal, you're not going to have a job, because you got to hit your numbers. So an unwritten rule is, by any means necessary, get to that number. That's a problem. That's a problem. It's going to cause employees to do things differently than are accepted within the rules and guidelines of the company. It happens every day. Same thing at home. These are the strict rules or the lax rules in our family, and then you wonder why your kid's in trouble. There's either too much accountability and too strict, or there's not enough. You got to find that happy medium. So here's a question and a challenge to your organizations. And there's at least two that are sponsoring me to be here. Whenever I see the mission statements and what you stand for, I think it's great. But I also ask the question, what do you have to do to get kicked out? Important question. How do you get kicked out? Because your mission statement doesn't really mean anything unless, I'm not saying someone deserves to be kicked out right now. I'm saying you must think as strongly about the mission statement as the guidelines for someone who might do wrong, or else it means nothing. Zero. I know it's tough to hear, but I sit on boards of organizations like this. And it's important to really think about that too. Let me tell you another story. It's a life story. There's a CEO. Let me tell this one, it's even better. There's a newscaster in the Northeast area, I'll say, who is going through hell right now with his family. And he has had some domestic violence situations happen that have taken him from his job. He has a drinking problem as well. And his wife is backing him to get the charges dropped now and to try and get his job back. They have a 7-year-old son. But the state has an obligation too. And when the state sees that there's a situation in the home, and they've been called back repeatedly in 2 different states, by the way, they look through the computer and find, and there's marks on someone's neck, they speak for you. That's their job. So they have a situation where they're trying to hold their family together, but the state's saying, we want to examine this more closely. And he asked me, what do you think we should do? And he starts saying, you know, one of the goals is to obviously get my job back. My wife also wants to have a steady paycheck, and that's helpful to my son as well, and that's the focus. And I said, your son playing any sports? He said, what? I said, your son playing any sports? He said, yeah. He says, he's an amazing athlete. He's playing 3 sports. I said, really? So when was the last time he played a sport? He said, I was just helping coach his Little League practice just the other day. I said, yeah, so how'd it go? He said, oh, he had a big game before that, and we had a practice. It's going great. Said, why are you focused on that? I said, because it's not about the next job. It's not about, I know that's tough to hear because you need the money. It's not even about your relationship with your wife first. It's certainly a big part of it. But if you're saying that your big rock is your son, for both of you, you don't think he's 7 years old. You don't think he hears the arguments back and forth? You don't think he knows that there's disagreements happening within the home? You don't think that's impacting him and he's learning that behavior right now? And he could repeat that and it could become cyclical? I don't want to think about any of that. You know what? I gotta go. Click. Hangs up on me. Talked to his wife about the conversation. She calls me back the next morning. She wants to know more about that. He calls me back in the afternoon and apologizes and says, so what are you saying? To get the job, you got to put your big rocks back first? They're totally a mess? It's not about the job first. It's not about the business first. It's about you being the best human being you can be first. Then you apply that to your wife and your son, and you build internally before you go externally. The job is externally. Ironically, I think you got a break. You're not working right now. You have a little money in the bank. Do some work now on you. And if you start doing that, it doesn't have to be a press release. It doesn't have to be an announcement. In your own community, people will see you and your wife and your son working on things, going to counseling. Trust me, people will learn. Your neighbors will learn that you're going to counseling, you're doing other things. It's not something you need to hide. We're not going to send out an announcement of it. Just do it. One day at a time. And from that, trust me, if you do a good job, and it's probably going to take more than a year, you're eventually going to get your job back. But you can't put that first. You got to do this hard work personally first, because that's what got you fired from your job in the first place. The root is your personal behavioral issues. Tough stuff, man. Tough stuff. So that's what your group is about. Great awards. Wonderful. Probably fully earned. Challenge to us all, go deeper. Personally. Bring it home to your family. Have an accountability partner. You have like minds in the room. That's why you're here. Don't be embarrassed to ask someone across the table, hey, can we be accountability partners for each other? Understand when confidentiality is needed. Understand when transparency is needed. Be the kind of friends and family members and mentors that are required to really walk the talk of what OK Ethics and OK Quality Foundation are all about. And I will tell you, it will be the kind of thing that you have to recharge yourself every day. It's hard. We want to turn the other way from big problems because they're deep, they're heartfelt, and they're core roots. So when I have a professional athlete who was charged with rape, and then they say he scored 88 points, he's good now. I say, what? The root of the problem was never his ability to put the ball in the hoop. The root of the problem was, is he in a marriage that he holds dear and honors and consistently honors her by not having relationships with other women? That starts with honoring her with your attitude before you even open your mouth. That's the root. Tiger Woods, same thing. Oh, he's playing better golf now. Okay, is he a better human being? I don't know. I told a journalist who was a top investigative journalist when the Kobe thing first broke, wasn't my client, by the way, but I was talking a lot about it on the news because I've had clients like that. If you want to know what Kobe Bryant is doing, there's an easy answer. Follow him. Don't let him know you're coming. Follow him. He's stuck on how many points he scored. He's stuck on even some of the troubles he's having with his mom and the memorabilia sales. You want to know, if you want to do an update story on athletes who have been in crisis and truly go to the root, just go back and read the original story. What was the root? Did you have adulterous affairs on your wife, and did you potentially rape a woman? That was the root. He's on the road all the time. Follow him. You'll find out very quickly. Nobody's doing that, though. I don't know one journalist that's done that. And why is that so important? Because we all have to have accountability. And that example will be an example for many other athletes and all of us too. Oh my gosh, somebody followed him. What do you want to know? Sure. at a nightclub. He asked me this. When I come back to the room and this woman was with him, you'll find out very quickly. Easy story to do. But you gotta wanna know instead of turning a blind eye. This stuff is about behavioral change. You can't talk about ethics and reputation and the building blocks if we're not gonna be real with ourselves and understand that it's, by the way, it's also good for business. We're learning that. It's hard stuff to do. Instead of it repelling people, it's like a magnet. It draws them in. It helps you hire good people. It helps you have the kind of customers and clients you want to have. There's a ripple effect in that perspective as well. You have to invest in it. Yes. Anything worthy you have to invest in. You have to spend some money. But don't be like everyone else. Understand that having something that is so ironic to be a key differentiator in doing the right thing, when you list all the other companies and other individuals that you know that are not doing it, trust me, it will stand out. Just be consistent with it. So what are those building blocks? Truth, honesty, humility, transparency, accountability with that partner, and consistency. Bring them into your lives, bring them into your organizations. Understand that there is a huge difference between a business life and a personal life. That's a slippery slope. One life, one set of rules. You can do it. Awards are great. Being honest with yourself and the people around you is even more important. Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak to you. And remember, your reputation is everything. Thank you very much.